Hi, this is Logan Garibay, and today we are going to talk specifically about, is Dungeons & Dragons deadly enough? Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition deadly enough? I always try to give you my answers right away. I don't want to I hate when people make you wait to the end of the video to give you an answer. I'll give you the answer now, right? Dungeons & Dragons is not deadly enough. It should be 5 times more deadly than it is right now, and I got some math to support that. So let's go ahead and jump in. I'll give you my math, and we'll talk about the deadliness of Dungeons & Dragons and why it should be there. So, one, let me cite my sources. One of the best Dungeons & Dragons commentators out there right now is Professor Dungeon Master over on Dungeon Crafting. His love for the game is incredibly genuine. He has, and in my opinion, a lot of people say, so here's my take. I don't think any tabletop role-playing game any serious game master should be playing 50% Dungeons & Dragons and 50% other games, and switch off by campaign. Okay, so basically, I would have, in my opinion, campaigns should be short. They should be 3, 5, 7 sessions. Let's say you triple what I'm saying and you go 20 sessions on a campaign. Then you should switch off and do non-Dungeons & Dragons campaign for another 20 sessions, then come back to Dungeons & Dragons. I really feel like people who are serious about the hobby, about tabletop role-playing games, should play 50% Dungeons & Dragons, current edition, 50% non-Dungeons & Dragons games, right? So, and he supports that. He plays non-Dungeons & Dragons stuff, he plays Dungeons & Dragons stuff. He's one of the best voices out there. And he brought up this great point that Matthew Mercer, who has an incredible impact on the game, and I actually believe absolutely no one in the hobby is impacting Dungeons & Dragons more than Matthew Mercer. Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition has had more impact from Matthew Mercer than Mike Merles, who designed the game. It's incredible. Okay? So basically, he said, and this is true, Matthew Mercer had 100 sessions of 4-hour session games before a single player died. That is crazy, right? If that's the case, then you are truly playing puppies and rainbows. Like, your game has virtually no path to death, right? And the reality is, so why is death important in Dungeons & Dragons, right? Well, if your character doesn't have any chance of dying and is being carried through the story by the narrative love of the Dungeon Master for your characters, that means that when you achieve great victories, you didn't achieve anything, okay? Now, what is the correct amount of player character death in Dungeons & Dragons? It's 5 times more than in my opinion, than Critical Role. Critical Role makes the game literally 5 times too safe, okay? So, in my opinion, every 20 sessions of 4-hour or 2-hour Dungeons & Dragons. I play 2-hour Dungeons & Dragons. I really think everybody in the hobby should switch to 2-hour games. It's going to help the whole hobby. But in a session between 2 and 4 hours, 20 sessions should go by and 1 player character should die. Period. End of sentence. And the reason why is you want your players to feel like they have achieved something when they get through your dungeons, when they defeat your monsters. If they never die, you're not rolling hard enough against them. That is my opinion. You want your players to feel like they've earned something. So I do think that Dungeons & Dragons is 5 times, Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, is 5 times too safe. Now, what do you need to do this? All you need to do is just put a colorway on your monsters, right? I'm a huge fan of sneakers, and sneakers have colorways, right? So I own a pair of Nike Zoom Freak 2s, right? And I own them in a Boba Fett scheme, like it's a nice light green and a dark green and an orange. And then I own them also in triple black, right? Very, very nice pair of shoes. I really like them. But I own them in 2 colorways, right? So all you need to do is just put some extra weird colors on your monster and say, this monster's special. And add 2d8 or 2d12 or 4d6 or 4d8 or 4d10, right, to every attack. And say, oh, this is based on their sapphire-infused blood, right? Like, Magic gives you you don't need to hack the game in any way. You just make a custom monster, custom magic item, poisoned weapons, all kinds of things like this, right? And the reality is you want your players to really feel like they've earned something. And that's in a 4-player game, traditional 4-player game. So if you have 20 sessions and one player character dies, right, that you feel like, they're going to feel a sting and you may lose that player. I'm not going to pretend, right? Players get pissed when their characters die, right? And you need to be willing to risk losing a player at the table because they got so upset because when their character dies. Because it's got to have some bitter. You need some bitter with the sweet. You really do, right? If it's sweet, 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 it ain't good. You need some bitter with the sweet. Now, the flip side of that is I've been watching Aaron the Pedantic. He's another. I will point you his way. He curses a lot. I don't like that. And he has some very unusual views on tabletop role-playing games, but I like that his voice is so distinct. I don't agree with almost anything he says, but his voice is really distinct, and he's thinking about what he's saying, right? And he runs these meat grinder funnels, right? And they just tear characters apart a lot, right? Like, they just kill, basically, you go into a session, there's often a 25% chance that your character will die in a single session, which means that you go 4 sessions, your character dies, right? Now, why don't I like this level of deadliness, right? Because it's the same thing. You need to hit a sweet spot, right? If your characters say, oh, I can get through 20 sessions and there's a good chance I'll go into the next session and I can run another entire campaign or 2 and none of my characters die, which most of your characters, if you have 4 players at the table, only one's going to die every 20 sessions, right? It means, hey, I got a good chance of dying, but I got a good chance of living, right? Whereas if you are just meat grinding characters, that's fun for the dungeon master. For some dungeon masters, it's kind of macabre, but I do know some dungeon masters really like killing characters. How is a player going to get invested in a character like that? It doesn't make any sense. And the reality is they're not. They're just kind of running statistical analyses and seeing different characters die in different ways. And I just don't really feel you can get invested. It really discourages role-playing. It really discourages a lot of stuff. And I think that's too deadly. So in my opinion, Dungeons & Dragons is too deadly. Dungeons & Dragons is too safe, right? And you need to take the guardrails off of it. You should be having a player character dying every 20 sessions. Now, I will say this. I think Critical Role is one of the problems they're having is that is really a narrative game where they are really not doing justice to mechanics. There should be a balance. You should care about mechanics and you should care about narrative. And I don't think Matthew Mercer's crew really cares about mechanics. They're just too much on the narrative side. All that's my opinion. Give me the numbers. How often should one player character in a group of 4 player characters, one every 10 sessions, one every 20 sessions, one every 100 sessions, like on Critical Role? What's the number? What's your thoughts? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.